Good evening and welcome back to And the Gooby Goes Too. It is time. The moment is finally here for my final Oscar predictions for the 98th Academy Awards. We're going to go through all 24 categories. I'm going to show my Gold Derby account screen to just go through all the nominees, show y'all who I have as my top picks right now. We'll have a little bit of fun because some of the categories I'm not fully decided on yet, so you very well will likely see some live changes in the moment. But without further ado, this is going to be a really long video, so let's just go ahead and get started. Let's kick things off with the short films because these are by far the hardest categories to predict, so I might as well get them out of the way. We don't have much precursor strength to go with ever in these categories. We might think that the Academy is going to lean one way and they go completely another. In this category specifically with live action short film, last year, I Am Not a Robot was definitely not predicted by many, if any, people to be the ultimate winner, and was at the end of the day. So you really just never know what kind of curveball the voters are going to throw in these three short categories. So right now, my pick for this category to win live action short is Two People Exchanging Saliva. I talked about it in my personal ballots video where this was my favorite of these short films here. I sometimes try to lean away from picking my favorite as the predicted winner just because it feels like my personal bias might be coming in. However, I do feel like this short film in particular fits the bill in so many ways for what makes a winner in this category. It's by far, to me, the most complete. It's the most cinematic. It's the most interesting. It has some big names behind it, both behind the camera, in front of the camera. And I just have a good-ish feeling about this one. The other thing I look at here, especially like on sites like Gold Derby and Awards Expert, is I really want to make sure my picks in the three short categories are not matching across the board. That's usually a huge red flag to me. And right now, I actually have 0, which may be a bit of a red flag as well, but to me is a much less of a red flag than having all of them matching. It looks like, a lot of the predictors and pundits are thinking that A Friend of Dorothy's going to win with Two People Exchanging Saliva in second there. But I don't know. I kind of understand the argument people have for A Friend of Dorothy right now, but I do think it's just like too sweet and simple for this Academy, at least, especially as it grows, becomes more international, grows a more diverse voting body. And to me, just the fascination of the subject matter and everything with Two People Exchanging Saliva, along with the title alone. Some voters may not even be watching these, and even though they shouldn't be voting, they still do, and they might just go for what they think is the best title, and it's a good title too. So I have some faith in this one. We'll have to see what happens, obviously, but my current prediction for best live action short film is Two People Exchanging Saliva. On to documentary short. So my predicted winner here is Armed Only with a Camera, The Life and Death of Brent Renaud. Again, this is one that was towards the top of my list. It wasn't my favorite, so I can at least say that I don't have a favorite bias here. My favorite one in this category was The Devil is Busy. With this one, I have the second place in the odds again. A lot of people really think that All the Empty Rooms is going to take this one. Again, I'm not buying it so much. I do think, honestly, like, between All the Empty Rooms and The Devil is Busy, those are two very American-centric, debatable topic type documentary pieces. All the Empty Rooms not necessarily being about school shootings, but surrounding school shootings, and then The Devil's Busy being about abortion. To me, that kind of splits the vote a little bit in terms of like crisis issues in America right now. And then, so I'm looking elsewhere and thinking, what would a voter be leaning towards here? And with Children No More, I think that could have a chance just given the global topic matter of it. However, I think Armed Only with a Camera has a stronger chance because it's focused on one person and like really hones in on one person's impact who was killed doing the work that created this documentary piece. And I do think that voters are going to gravitate towards that one a bit. Perfectly a Strangeness, I think, is just happy to be there. I swear to God, if that fucking film wins this category, I hope someone puts up like 5 figures on that winning because you will be a very rich person after that. However, with the confidence and knowledge that I have right now, my final prediction for best documentary short is Armed Only with a Camera, The Life and Death of Brent Renaud. And finally, for the shorts categories, we have best animated short. I am currently predicting Retirement Plan. If you remember from my personal ballots, this was right in the middle of my list. I thought it was good, but like it didn't get me too much. This is third in the odds right now. Butterfly is the current leader. I think in a perfect world, Butterfly would win because Butterfly should win. However, what often happens in these shorts categories is that the short film that should win often does not win. So I'm trying not to lean on that too much, especially when there's kind of like a clear artistic like superior within this category. And to me, that's Butterfly. However, I feel like Retirement Plan fits the bill in a lot of ways where like within animated short, of recent time, aside from the year of the boy, the fox, the horse, whatever all those animals were, I feel like they've been going for a bit more of like a macabre vibe within this category. In the Shadow of the Cypress last year, another big shocker. Like I don't think anybody had that predicted to win, and it did. And I think it was like by far kind of the most grim of the animated shorts last year. It shows that they're not afraid to go for something a little bit darker and like avoid, kind of the family friendly, child friendly animated short features. And to me, Retirement Plan kind of falls right in the middle where, it has a humorous undertone, but like has a very deep heart in its message as well. I think in terms of visibility, it's from the New Yorker. It won a pretty good slew of awards throughout the season. Again, not that that really matters, but I do think this short film in particular has been in front of people for a long time now, and a lot of people have been seeing it. Again, with it being from the New Yorker, I think it's just been very much in everybody's face. And has a good enough story to carry it to a win. So my final prediction for Best Animated Short is Retirement Plan. All right, now that those are out of the way, let's talk strategy and reason. So we will kick it off here with Best International Feature. I am sticking with the most logical pick right now, which is Sentimental Value. A lot of people are starting to lean towards, a secret agent upset here. However, I think a lot of that is contingent on the I'm Still Here uprise of last year. The difference being that Sentimental Value is not Emilia Perez, and not in any way, shape, or form. I do think this is a year where the most nominated film of this category is going to be the superior pick and is going to end up winning. Sentimental Value, beloved film, 9 Oscar nominations, all 4 actors nominated, director, editing, screenplay, picture, completely above the line. It just makes the most sense. I don't have enough reason here to say that The Secret Agent has enough passion to surpass that when The Secret Agent should have showed up more than if that were going to be the case. There were talks about The Secret Agent showing up in screenplay and production design if it was really, really going to be strong. The casting pick is interesting and like definitely throws a little bit of a curveball in there, aside from Wagner Moura getting his nomination as well. But I just don't think it's enough. I think Sentimental Value is far too strong. Dominator of the European Film Awards, has just been present the entire season, hasn't missed any nominations. It got the PGA nomination. I just think it's going to be more of an Academy favorite. Yeah, I don't have too much more to say on it, honestly. I just don't see The Secret Agent pulling off this win. The only thing that The Secret Agent has is that it did kind of start upsetting by winning international pick at the Critics' Choice Awards and at the Golden Globes. However, I think those were both intentional moves by the voters to make sure that they could get The Secret Agent in front of voters and specifically get Wagner Moura recognized too. Especially at Critics' Choice, they very much try to predict the Oscars or like push things to happen for the Oscars. And I think that vote for The Secret Agent there was partially due to the fact that they wanted to make sure it got not only its international feature recognition at the Oscars, but also got Wagner Moura, got a Best Picture. And I could probably say similarly about the Golden Globes. I also think in general, the Golden Globes aren't going to be a very big one-to-one translator this year. I think it'll be very similar to last year where like we don't see too much crossover. So for all those reasons, my final prediction for Best International Feature is Sentimental Value. On to the documentaries. So Best Documentary Feature, I am currently predicting Mr. Nobody Against Putin. The Perfect Neighbor has been the favorite all season and still is with most of the pundits. I just don't think it has shown enough strength to prove that it's a total walk away for the Oscar. It was the critics' favorite. However, we have seen year in and year in that what the critics decide is their favorite documentary of the year often doesn't even get nominated for an Academy Award. And it tends to be some sort of like celebrity biopic of some sort. It kind of has been the past few years, you know, like Will and Harper was the favorite last year. The Superman Christopher Reeve story was a favorite. You know, we kind of get these every year where the critics hone in on something, I think, as a way to try and push it to an Oscar nomination. It doesn't happen, doesn't even get nominated, and then we try to figure out what the actual winner is. There could be a difference in the fact that The Perfect Neighbor actually made it in this year. However, there was a fascinating presence of American documentary specifically within how the documentary branch decided to nominate this year. You know, we have 3 documentaries here that are American centric, which is pretty rare, like for the past several years at least. And with that alone too, I feel like that's going to kind of break things up where there isn't going to be a consensus that The Perfect Neighbor is the favorite documentary here. The fact that it lost the PGA for documentary, even though it had no business doing so, you know, there was no reason why this critics' favorite American documentary film could not win the Producers Guild for documentary feature. That going to My Mom Jane, the story about Mariska Hargitay's mom. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I'm too tired. Anyway, Jane Mansfield, Jesus Christ, thank you, brain, thank you. Anyway, so the fact that The Perfect Neighbor lost there, Mr. Nobody Against Putin beat The Perfect Neighbor at BAFTA, and that to me is enough evidence that on a global scale and like for a global academy, Mr. Nobody Against Putin has a very good chance to come out on top. I talked about how that was my favorite documentary of this group, and I just think that it's going to garner a wider audience than The Perfect Neighbor will. So my final prediction for Best Documentary Feature is Mr. Nobody Against Putin. Best Animated Feature, we will make this quick and easy. K-pop Demon Hunters is winning this category. Moving on. Thank you so much. Okay, now here is where things start to get interesting because frankly, now we are in the categories that Sinners is nominated in. And there has been a tone shift of like epic proportion towards how people think Sunday night is going to go. You know, following the actor awards, following BAFTA, a lot of folks are starting to think that Sinners is going to pull this epic upset sweep and start to pick up awards that nobody was expecting it to all season. It's very convincing, honestly. Like, I've been listening to so many different pundits and predictors and content creators talk about this and some of their reasoning, some of which makes no sense, but some of which makes me think, man, am I gonna like have a destroyed ballot on Sunday night? Overall, like as a precursor to this, I am not predicting Sinners to pull pretty much all of the upsets that a lot of people are thinking it's going to. However, it's made me think a lot. Starting right here with Best Visual Effects. You know, there's no reason to doubt that Avatar Fire and Ash would lose this category. You know, it's a pretty safe bet that for an Avatar film, it is going to win Best Visual Effects. Like the year you know that film's coming out, put your prediction in because how is anything else going to beat it? However, this is one of the ones I was looking at today where I was like, man, if they open the envelope for this and say Sinners, like Sinners might win a teen number of Oscars tonight, and it would be absolutely crazy. You know, again, Avatar Fire and Ash has no reason to lose. It has won every single award, including BAFTA. And like in general, BAFTA is a pretty good indicator in terms of the craft and below the line categories, just because there is like a decent amount of overlap of BAFTA voters to Academy voters. Avatar Fire and Ash got 7 wins at the Visual Effects Society, which I think like might be a record, or it's at least close. It like just fucking dominated the VES awards. But Sinners did win the supporting visual effects award there. And that just makes me like scratch my head a little bit. You know, you look back at some movies like 1917. I was looking at them earlier. I was going through the past visual effects winners, and like there are times where the winner of the supporting visual effects award at VES like pulls an upset at the Oscars and wins over the one that's like the big in your face visual effects movie and like wins all the other big awards at VES. I just don't think this is the year. Part of me was like, you know, is there a potential that because of the fact that Avatar Fire and Ash wasn't received as well as the first two films, is not nominated in Best Picture, is only in one other category with costumes, could that be enough weakness where not enough voters bothered to see it or just like kind of turned off by it that they go, well, what if I voted for Sinners instead? I don't think it's enough. I think if like Avatar were a franchise that wasn't pulling in over $1 billion worth of sales, we could make that argument. But, you know, its viewership alone on a global scale tells me that enough people are seeing it, or at least like admirable enough of the work being done. You know, they won a special award at VES for like creating new technology basically for the movie. So I am leery. This is a spot, if this is like early in the ceremony and like Sinners wins here, I'm going to be like, oh, fuck, I might as well just throw my ballot out right now. But my final prediction for best visual effects is Avatar Fire and Ash. Okay, best sound. Another one I thought was so certain, but has had me scratching my head a little bit, just a little bit. I do still think F1 is by far the favorite to win here. However, something very interesting happened at the Sound Editors Awards last week where F1 got beat in both of the major categories, both in ADR and in sound Foley effects, with Frankenstein winning the sound Foley effects side and then Sinners winning the ADR side, and then Sinners also won the music sound editing award there too. So F1 got kind of blanked out there, which was just really weird considering it was one of the only movies like nominated in both categories and everything. It was just kind of a head scratcher for a lot of people that were like, whoa, that's kind of strange. However, I don't think F1 has enough weakness to win here, and I think this is the type of film that can easily like just win best sound and nothing else, and like that's not a weird package for it either. You know, racing movies, it's weird to vote against them with this type of category and how history has shown these winners to be. Top Gun Maverick just did it where, you know, sound was the only category it won. It was nominated for 2 extra awards compared to F1 as well, because they both had picture, sound, editing, and visual effects. And then Top Gun Maverick also had adapted screenplay and song. So it's not weird to say that F1 only wins sound here and that's it. And I do think it's safe enough. It won the BAFTA, I think. But, and this is the thing with visual effects too that I didn't talk about, because yes, Avatar Fire and Ash won visual effects at BAFTA, but Sinners also wasn't nominated for visual effects at BAFTA. So we haven't seen Avatar beat Sinners in like a major awards ceremony yet in visual effects. I can't backtrack now. I locked it in. But it's kind of a similar thing here where Sinners was nominated for Best Sound at BAFTA and lost. So I do feel better about F1 winning here. And really, I actually don't think Sinners is even number 2 here. I actually think Sarat is number 2. If Sarat had pulled out a couple extra nominations, I'd feel pretty good about it pulling an upset here. If it would have gotten into like casting maybe, or like somehow pulled out a screenplay nomination, I feel pretty confident about putting Sarat at number 1 as an upset. Like, you know, kind of pulling a Zone of Interest type of thing. But the difference with Zone of Interest, that was always the front runner winner for Best International Feature. It ended up winning sound at BAFTA, and that was kind of the turn of, oh, Oppenheimer's not going to win Best Sound, the Zone of Interest is. And we're not seeing that with Sarat. You know, it did well at the European Film Awards. Basically, the EFAs this year were just Sentimental Value and Sarat swapping awards. And Sarat won there, so I think it has strength with an international body, but my issue with Sarat only having 2 nominations at the Academy Awards in international and in sound is that not everyone might see it. And so I don't think it has enough viewership in comparison to something like The Zone of Interest, where, you know, everyone had to see that movie because it was in Best Picture. So I do have it at number 2. That'd be a dope ass win. I would like lose my shit. I didn't do the tech categories for my personal picks here, but my pick would absolutely be for Sarat in this category. But my final prediction for Best Sound is F1. All right, Best Song. So this is pretty easy. It's gonna be Golden. Gonna be golden. Oh my god, I hate myself. Might edit that out if I don't enjoy my inner embarrassed monologue here. Yeah, it's gonna be Golden. I don't know how it can't be at this point. We would have had to see I Lied to You upset somewhere. Granted, it would have had to be a Critics' Choice or the Globes, neither of which happened because BAFTA doesn't do a Best Song category. But this isn't an example where, like, the Best Picture frontrunner, one of the Best Picture frontrunners anyway, like, kind of pulls an upset, especially because, like, you know, it's not. Golden is just so undeniable. You know, it's in the film that's winning Best Animated Feature. It was top of the charts for weeks, months, like basically the entire back half of 2025. Everyone loves it. They're going to perform the shit out of it at the Academy Awards for sure. And it's going to be a great win. You know, EJ has given a couple like great emotional speeches so far, and I think a lot of people will be excited to see her Oscar speech. It'll be a great win. So I can't even say, like, I would be very, very shocked if Golden lost. And if I Lied to You won here, again, I'd be like, oh, fuck, like Sinners is coming for it. So, end of the day, you know, it's technically between those two, but I just think Golden has such a lead at this point. So, my final prediction for Best Song is Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters. All right, on to Best Score. So, my first prediction for a very safe Sinners win for the evening, Ludwig Göransson. The score is incredible. Congratulations on your third Oscar. Well deserved. It's going to be a great win. I don't even know who to call second place at this point. Like maybe One Battle, probably, but it's just undeniable that Sinners is absolutely gonna pick up an Oscar here. So my final prediction for best score is Ludwig Göransson's score for Sinners. All right, best production design. So this starts a trifecta of what I think are going to be pretty easy Frankenstein wins. I think the Frankenstein team definitely has this one wrapped up. Precursor wise, you know, you have the Art Directors Guild where Frankenstein went against Hamnet, Sinners, and Marty Supreme and beat it for best period set, basically. And One Battle After Another just definitely isn't going to win this because it's a contemporary film and there's no way. So feel very confident on that. When you look at Set Decorator Society, granted, Frankenstein was in a category of its own, not against any of these other films because it was put into sci-fi fantasy as opposed to Hamnet, Sinners, and Marty Supreme, which did they have? Yeah, Hamnet, Sinners, and Marty Supreme were all in the period category. Hamnet won there, so I guess like you could kind of say Hamnet's second place technically, but Frankenstein won the BAFTA. Like this is just absolutely the type of film that wins these types of awards. So my final prediction for best production design is Frankenstein. Second on that trifecta, best makeup and hairstyling. I think Frankenstein has this one in the bag too. It's just so showy, you know, everything with the creature aside just from all the other period makeup that they're doing within that movie and a lot of the special effects makeup too. It is interesting when you look at the Makeup Artists and Hairstylists Guild, the MOA Awards. Sinners did win 2 of them because they won period or character makeup, and then they also won period character hairstyling. The only one where it beat Frankenstein was in that hairstyling category, and I think that makes sense, and I think that's okay. Again, Frankenstein has been steamrolling this award all season. It won the BAFTA, and you know, this is the type of grouping of these awards that you see. You know, we saw it with Poor Things, where we all thought Barbie and Poor Things were going to split some of these things, but it just all made sense that like they were all going to go together. And I think this is no exception. And, you know, we don't have anything this year that's like The Substance where it's been on everyone's mind and winning everywhere. And like people think it needs to win. You know, we have 3 films in this category this year that arguably like have great makeup, but for, you know, The Ugly Stepsister, The Smashing Machine, and Kokuo, who knows if voters even watch those films because this is the only nomination that those 3 movies have. So you're really looking at between Frankenstein and Sinners, and I think like this is maybe closer than production design, but I still think Frankenstein walks away with this one pretty easily. So my final prediction for best makeup and hairstyling goes to Frankenstein. And then rounding out that trifecta, again, best costume design, I think Frankenstein takes this one very easily. You know, I think for me, at least personally, like the costumes were my favorite part of Frankenstein of like the 3 craft categories that I just talked about. Visually stunning, everything that Mia Goth's character, my favorite color is red, to be clear. And so like a lot of the stuff that Mia Goth wore in that film, I was just fucking obsessed with. But like everyone just looked absolutely dressed to the nines in that movie. It fit the piece so well. When you look at precursors, you know, Frankenstein beat Hamnet and Sinners at the Costume Guild Awards. It won the BAFTA. It's been sweeping all the critics awards for costumes. Um, yeah, and so I just think that Frankenstein's got this one in the bag. I just have to say I think it's crazy that Avatar: Fire and Ash is here. I need to do research on this because I'm going in with a gut instinct of like, what costumes? And so maybe I need to look into that further to like understand how they got to that nomination, but that over Paul Tazwell for Wicked for Good? Okay. I digress. But anyway, yeah, I think Frankenstein's going to pull the craft trifecta here. And so my final prediction for best costume design goes to Frankenstein. Moving on to best editing. So this for me ties to the best picture winner. And so I am currently predicting One Battle After Another to win this. It has not really shown any weakness of losing in this category. It was picking up a lot of critics awards. It won editing at BAFTA. It won the Ace Eddie for comedy. Now, you also look at Sinners, which did win the Ace Eddie at for drama and beat out both F1 and Sentimental Value there. So I do think it's a race between those two, and I think it's going to ultimately go to whoever the best picture winner is. And even so, like, if Sinners were to win Best Picture, I could still see One Battle After Another taking editing, just because I think it's so flashy and has the kind of prestige of being the type of editing that makes a close to 3-hour movie feel half that length. And I think a lot of voters are recognizing that. And F1 was the favorite for so long because it's like the most actiony editing, with the racing and everything. But like One Battle kind of has the editing that honestly most of these movies have. It has dramatic moments of editing, it has action-filled moments, it has comedic bits, it has thriller in it. Like it's kind of got actually everything that like all these other movies individually have themselves. So I do think it makes the most sense to me that even if One Battle were to lose Best Picture, it could still win editing. But this is one that will be a huge indicator when we get to this award on Sunday night. So big one to look out for. But my ultimate prediction for best editing goes to One Battle After Another. Okay, next up, best cinematography. This one is a bit of a bummer for me. I had pretty high hopes that our Autumn Durald Arkapaw was going to pull this one off for Sinners. It would have been such a monumental moment. A woman has never won this category before in 97 years of the Academy Awards. And I think the cinematography of Sinners is super deserving, honestly. But we've seen that One Battle After Another, that cinematography from Michael Bauman is just undefeatable and undeniable. He has won everywhere, getting BSC, the British Society of Cinematographers, ASC, the American Society of Cinematographers, and the BAFTA. Like, that's a pretty undeniable trifecta to beat. And it shows that ASC was just voted on over the weekend. Well, I don't know when their voting period was, but it was just announced over the weekend. So even up until recent times, with the Sinners upswing a little bit, that cinematography is still proving to be dominating within this category. And I do think ultimately it's going to easily pull it off at the Oscars here. The odds finally changed. I don't want to say finally, but like, Sinners was really far ahead still in the odds up until like today, I think. Like, I think it just switched over to One Battle being in the lead now. I know so many people are holding out hope on Sinners, but there's just been no indicator whatsoever to say that it's going to pull off like that type of massive upset. If it happens, great. I'd be super thrilled. And again, I think that's kind of like an oh shit moment for like what's to come for the rest of the ceremony. But my final prediction for best cinematography is Michael Bauman's work for One Battle After Another. All right, let's go to the newest category at the Academy Awards, Best Casting. So this is a tough one. I just shook up my predictions here a little bit. Okay, I'm going quiet for a little bit because I don't know what to do here. I'm so torn because I feel like I'm jumping on the bandwagon of Sinners kind of being the runaway with this, but it's so hard. We have no precedent for how the Academy is going to vote for this category. And like I talked about in my personal ballot, we hope that they're voting for what this is meant for, that being the fact that this is going to the casting director and that they're voting for what they feel is the best casting achievement, and they're not just voting for like their favorite movie or for, what they think is the best ensemble of the film, because that's not what this award is for. If it were up to me, like I said, I would have Sarat in here and winning 100%, but it's not. So I got to figure out what to do now here. And I don't really know what to do. I think I stick with Sinners just because it kind of makes sense. I think there's enough precedent for the talent they found for that film. I think the discovery of Miles Caton is a big enough success. And the fact of finding such a wide variety of actors to play like kind of such a wide variety of roles, um having to sing, I wonder if in the future, like a musical will tend to do well in here just because of the aspect of like finding these multifaceted talents. And maybe that's what gives Sinners the edge here, is that, Delroy Lindo was playing harmonica, Miles Caton is playing guitar and singing. Like, there's a lot of different types of talent being showcased in this movie. And so maybe I do feel okay having Sinners here as the winner. If I had to vote in this category, I'd vote for Marty Supreme. And I do think it could, but it doesn't make sense though, because I don't know if Marty Supreme is winning anything. So why would it win like just casting? Doesn't make so much sense. And then why don't I have One Battle After Another higher? I don't know, because I feel like they look at that movie and they're like, there's a lot of known, very talented actors in this film, so we don't need to award it. Geez. I wonder if this award is going to end up like consistently being tied to an acting win. Like, is there, oh my God, but I don't have an acting win predicted for Sinners. So why am I putting it here? Ooh, what to do. This is where y'all get to see my brain just go. Sinners did win. Well, so they have the Casting Society Awards. But they also have so many categories that it's kind of hard to tell because, like, they have big budget feature comedy, which went to Jay Kelly, big budget feature drama, which went to Sinners, and then studio or indie went to Rendell Family, independent or studio drama went to Sentimental Value, international, The Fisherman. Honestly, haven't even heard of that. Low budget, Sorry Baby. Like, so they have so many categories. Now, granted, Sinners is the only film to have won at the casting Artios Awards that's nominated here at the Oscars for Best Casting, so maybe it makes sense that it wins because of that. I don't know, y'all. This is a doozy. What all was nominated there? So like at casting in big budget drama was Begonia, F1, Frankenstein, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, Sinners. So Sinners technically beat Marty Supreme and Hamnet in this category already. In comedy, we had Jay Kelly, Materialist, Naked Gun, Phoenician Scheme, Wake Up Dead Man, Wicked for Good, none of which are here. Studio or independent drama, none of those are here. Studio or independent comedy, none of those are here. I think that was the weird thing too, where like I don't even like One Battle didn't even get a nomination at this group. Yeah. So maybe that's a red flag too. The Casting Society didn't even nominate One Battle After Another. So that's interesting. So yeah, I think the fact that we really only have like one precedent to go off of. Let's see. Yeah, and like at BAFTA, I Swear won. So we can't even look at BAFTA. Yeah. I think just because I don't have any other reason to pick anything else, we're going to go with Sinners. So my final prediction for best casting is Sinners. Okay, into the screenplay categories. So these are both going to be pretty easy. Best original screenplay going to Sinners. Congratulations, Ryan Coogler, on your first Oscar. Assuming that'll be his, regardless of what happens, this will be his first win of the night that he gets to accept. So easily going to be Sinners. I think even obviously for folks who are voting down the line for like One Battle, they can't vote for it here. So I think they're going to vote for Sinners. Very deserved win. Hasn't shown any weakness whatsoever. He has swept the entire season and it's going to be a great win for him. If there were a second place, I think it's Sentimental Value, just given the strength of that screenplay and like its international love, but I just don't, this has to be one of the easiest wins of the night. And this would probably be the biggest shock of the night if Sinners didn't win. So my final prediction for best original screenplay is Ryan Coogler for Sinners. And then right on over to best adapted screenplay. It's going to be One Battle After Another. Congratulations, congratulations, Paul Thomas Anderson, on your first Oscar, presumably. Um, Thinking on it, yeah, regardless of how the night goes, this should be his first Oscar win ever, and it'll be a great win for him. Again, no weakness shown, has swept the entire season. If there is a second place, I guess it's Hamnet, but there's just no way. You know, the top two movies duking it out for Best Picture are each going to get their screenplay wins, and those should be a good time to just sit back and relax during the ceremony. So my final prediction for Best Adapted Screenplay is Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another. All right, as we dive into the acting categories, this is where chaos starts, and this is where the race to Best Picture kind of really takes off. And starting with the supporting categories, you know, these are presumably going to be the first two awards of the night. So this is where all hell could break loose. Best Supporting Actor, I do think Sean Penn is going to take this for One Battle After Another. The BAFTA-SAG combo is just so undeniably strong, especially where Critics' Choice and Golden Globe were also split, you know, between Jacob Elordi and Stellan Skarsgård. Having that industry support, despite all the noise and chatter about he wasn't even there, he didn't give a speech, he's kind of a nut job, like they don't care. You know, they're looking at the performance and the legacy of this actor, and they're like, yeah, give him a third Oscar because he was fucking great in this movie. I can't say I disagree. You know, like I said on my personal ballot, I would vote for Sean Penn in this category. I think there is a chance for chaos a little bit. You know, if the international body proves to be strong, Stellan Skarsgård could come out on top just from that Golden Globe win if Sentimental Value like has a good night. I did end up moving Delroy Lindo up to third as like a real wild card. You know, his nomination was such a surprise. It's the only thing he was nominated for this entire season. And he's been out like really in the face of everybody as like the voice of sinners throughout campaigning on like the final backstretch here. I think intentionally, you know, I think that the publicists and the marketing team for that film are definitely like, get him out there, you know, A, to help his own campaign, but also like to help the campaign of the film. I will say, I think at the actor awards, and this kind of ties to like my overall thoughts of the impact of the actor awards on this race. I think if he would have given a stronger speech with the ensemble win for Sinners, this could look different. Not to fault him at all. You know, this is purely just from like a prognosticator standpoint. You know, everyone's saying that that speech at the actor awards has propelled Sinners to like Oscars domination and like Delroy to a likely Oscar upset win here. It could have been. I think he could have delivered a speech that would have skyrocketed his chances and the film's chances. But I think he fumbled the speech a little bit. You know, granted, he seemed just so stunned and shocked and happy to be there. I think he gave some very touching moments, but I don't think it was on the level of like, you know, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Coda, Parasite. You know, I don't think it had the same impact because I don't think it was as like concise and as powerful as those ones were. It was a great win. You know, it was a good speech. It was great to hear him talk. He, you know, shouted out his publicist, which was really cool. But I don't think it was enough to like fully upturn this entire race. So my final prediction for Best Supporting Actor is Sean Penn for One Battle After Another. Okay. And Best Supporting Actress, this is where my personal chaos vote and prediction comes in. I think genuinely that Inga Ipsdottir Liljas for Sentimental Value has a chance at pulling an upset here. A couple reasons why. This category has been chaos. Utter, complete chaos. We had Amy Madigan win a Critics' Choice. Everyone's like, okay, she's not only getting nominated, now she could potentially win if she steamrolls. Then the week after, Teyana Taylor wins the Golden Globe. Okay, Teyana Taylor is going to take over now and just sweep everywhere, which makes sense with One Battle After Another being the Best Picture frontrunner. Then Wunmi Mosaku wins at BAFTA. What the fuck do we do? And then Amy Madigan turns around and wins at the Actor Awards, and now it's just like, good God, what do we do? And this is going to be like unprecedented of recent time, no matter what happens. And so that's why I feel okay picking this chaos vote because there's no indicator as to who is a safe pick here. You know, Amy Madigan is the front runner right now, and I think a lot of people are relying on that for status, but I just don't think she has enough to do it. I know she has the actor award win, but I think that performance and her name in the Hollywood industry and knowing who like the SAG after voting body consists of and that they are definitely the most likely to have like loved Weapons the most, it makes sense that she won there. However, you have to look at this and say Weapons has no other nominations at the Academy Awards. Amy Madigan was not even nominated at BAFTA, wasn't even nominated in a category of 6. And that to me is just like detrimental statistics of predicting her as like a safe pick here. You look at Teyana Taylor, you know, in what I think is the best picture frontrunner, toe to toe with who I think is winning best supporting actor, but only has a Golden Globe win. And we look at both Amy Madigan and Teyana Taylor. They both have, I don't want to call it an issue, but they have little screen time. You know, Teyana Taylor is like the front end of One Battle After Another, and Amy Madigan is the back end of Weapons. And so with Teyana Taylor, you get to the end of One Battle After Another, and do people forget about her performance a little bit because an additional almost 2.5 hours of a film has happened since you've seen her on screen. And with Amy Madigan, do voters make it to the end of Weapons to see her showcase within the final like 25-30 minutes of Weapons? I think those are both like really complicated factors that make both of their wins like really difficult without either of them being like sweepers of the season. Then we have Wunmi Mosaku, who has a greater general presence throughout Sinners, but I think Sinners struggles in general where it is an ensemble showcase and not like an individual performance showcase. And I think those performances very much struggle to get through and earn votes because everyone's like focused on the movie and the cast as a whole and not so much on those individual performances. So then we get to our sentimental value girls, right? And I do think Elle Fanning's at the bottom, even though part of me is like, you know, I think there's a shit ton of people in the movie industry who pulled for her nomination here and like would happily vote for her. And as tight as I think this race is, like, would I be completely astonished if they somehow read Elle Fanning's name out loud? No, honestly. It'd be a dope fucking win. I'd be like, you know what? Good for her, honestly, because that would also be incredibly unprecedented territory. However, here's what lands me at Inga right now. She by far has the most screen time of any of these nominees, like more than double for, I think, at least 3 of them, if not all of them. You know, she's borderline like a co-lead in the trifecta of Renate Reinsve, Stellan Skarsgård, and herself. She also has, I was doing so much digging on this the past couple weeks to try and see like what could support my case here. And there is something kind of interesting. So Inga was like very much a favorite at the beginning of the season with some of the big critics awards. She won the National Board of Review for supporting actress. She won the New York Film Critics Online Society for best supporting actress, where she beat every single one of these people, except I don't think Elle Fanning was nominated. Let me double check that quick. No, she was. So Inga has beat every single one of these nominees before. And the other interesting thing is we have not, I want to make sure I don't misspeak here. Never mind. I think all 6 of these were against each other at Critics' Choice. I'm pretty certain. Let me fact check. Okay, so yeah. So these 5 were against each other at Critics' Choice. It was these 5 plus Ariana Grande, R.I.P. by the way. So like I was saying, she has the NBR win, she has the New York Film Society Online win against all these other nominees. She was the runner-up at LA Film Critics Film Critics Association, LAFCA. And what I found interesting was, so I dug into both the NBR winners and the New York Online Society winners. And I saw an interesting trend where like pretty much consistently if a supporting actress won both of those awards, they pretty much always went on to win the Oscar. Now, granted, a lot of those were sweeper types, like Da'Vine Joy Randolph, Allison Janney, Laura Dern, like that type where like they swept the entire season pretty much without any competition. So you can't really look at that as a one-to-one. However, what I did find was that there were two very specific instances of people who either had no major televised wins or only one and were considered an upset of their win at the Oscars then. And that was Penelope Cruz and Regina King, both of whom won both the National Board of Review and the New York Film Society Online. And then Penelope didn't win anything else and then went on to win the Oscar. Granted, that was the year of Kate Winslet in The Reader, kind of category hopping, ending up going lead at the Oscars, which arguably gave Penelope the chance to sweep in for the win at the Oscars at the end of the day. And then you have Regina King, who won the Globe, wasn't nominated anywhere else, and then, went on to win the Oscar for If Beale Street Could Talk. So I found it to be an interesting enough correlation that I was like, I can cling on to this, because I think there was a time where a lot of groups were trying to prop Inga up as the front runner, and it wasn't working just because, we had Teyana and Wunmi in these like best picture frontrunners, and we had Amy as this like industry legend who was last nominated like 40 years ago or whatever, and is back doing an iconic performance that has like stuck with culture. But I think this is such a tight race, and I think there's so many like different factors in play that it leaves the door open. And this is where I'm pulling my big stunt prediction. I also need to put a super bet here, because if I get this right, I need all those fucking points. So yeah, this is my crazy pick for the night, but my prediction for Best Supporting Actress is Inga Ipsdotter Lillias for Sentimental Value. So I know I said Inga was my chaos pick. I think my Best Actor pick is a little bit of chaos as well, but a little bit less, and I'll explain why. So I am currently predicting Leo to win this for One Battle After Another. Has he won anything significant? No. But again, we have unprecedented territory here where like no matter what happens, like a statistic is getting broken. So it just doesn't matter at this point. And for me, I really think they could read any 5 of these names and I wouldn't be that shocked. If the vote is so split and tight that Wagner Moura manages to surge through for The Secret Agent, makes sense. If the industry rallies around Ethan Hawke because they want to see him finally get an Oscar, makes sense. If Timothée Chalamet has just been the front runner all season, and BAFTA and the Actor Awards were just anomalies because, the BAFTAs decided to go with a homegrown favorite for their Best Actor prize, and SAG-AFTRA didn't want to vote for him again after awarding him last year. Makes sense. If Michael B. Jordan swoops in after his speech at the Actor Awards and there's passion for it, and if Sinners is going to surge as an unexpected frontrunner, makes sense. But what also makes sense to me is the only prior winner in this category, by far the biggest film legend in this category, in what I believe is still definitely the Best Picture frontrunner, in a role that everyone has pretty much unanimously agreed is a wonderful kind of like comeback for him after some of his not best work, and things where he like wasn't nominated, like for Killers of the Flower Moon, he did not score that Oscar nomination for Best Actor. And for he wasn't nominated for both Don't Look Up, right? I'm pretty certain. Yeah, like I think his last nomination was for Once Upon a Time, right? Yeah, so it's been a while since he's even been nominated. His win was a decade ago. So I think those stars line up where, things don't make sense. I think at different awards bodies, people were trying to push forward a different frontrunner, and Leo could have been second at every single one of those. He could have been second at Critics' Choice because he was picking up a good amount of critics' prizes throughout the season. Could have been second. He probably was second to Timothy at the Globes and Comedy Actor. Very well could have been second to Robert Aramayo at BAFTA, and could have been second to Michael B. Jordan at the actor awards. So we don't know how close this race is. And so I don't think there's any reason to doubt that anyone here could win. So with that said, my final prediction for Best Actor is Leonardo DiCaprio for One Battle After Another. I have to come back. Couple more things I need to say here. There is an interesting stat where it's been quite some time where Best Actor went to somebody who did not have a supporting performance or supporting actress specifically tagged along with them where there was a viable candidate. You know, you look at like Brendan Fraser, who had Hong Chow there for The Whale, Cillian Murphy, who had Emily Blunt there for Oppenheimer. Adrian Brody had Felicity Jones there for The Brutalist. And it's an interesting stat to think about because with Timothy and Marty Supreme, Odessa was probably number 6. And I think had she gotten the nomination, I think I would personally feel more secure voting for him. I just don't think it's the right time. I think there was so much hype about this happening with the lead up and the immediate release of Marty Supreme, but I think it's showing weakness. I do think like the Academy is just going to end up making him wait forever to get his first Oscar. I don't think there's a rush. And I think Marty Supreme isn't quite strong enough in comparison to like One Battle in Sinners to just like pull it out for him. Because at this point, I do think Timothy would be the only win for Marty Supreme. And that package just doesn't make sense. Like a lone Best Actor win for a film that has 10 nominations? 9? Is it 9 or 10? Blah, 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 blah. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. 9 Academy Award nominations, and its only win would be for Best Actor. That just doesn't sit right with me. You know, it would have to be a somewhat of a package like, you know, like The Brutalist. Because, like, you know, if it had fewer nominations, if it had like a smaller package potential, then I could see it just getting its acting win and that's it. But you look at like The Brutalist, which still ended up walking away with 3: actor, score, cinematography. Those types of smaller packages make sense more than just a lone acting win for a film that could be winning a lot more, but is clearly just not a favorite. Like, I don't know why people would be going down their ballot and saying, I'm going Sinners, I'm going One Battle After Another, I'm going Secret Agent Where I Can, but I'm going to stop here at Best Actor and vote for Timothée Chalamet anyway. Doesn't quite make sense, so had to come back and just explain a little bit more. But again, prediction, Best Actor, Leo DiCaprio, One Battle After Another. All right, I can take a breather here because Best Actress, pretty easy. Jessie Buckley, congratulations. Can't wait to see your speech. You're dope. Been a big fan of yours for a long time, and I'm very happy that you'll have an Oscar in your hand in like 96 hours or so. So congratulations, Jessie Buckley. My final prediction for Best Actress, Jessie Buckley, Hamnet. Okay, and now we are at the end. We are at Best Director and Best Picture. So for me, it's one battle across both. Best Director, like, there's no supporting evidence at this point that Paul Thomas Anderson is going to fumble this. I think there's so much hope dicting and everything going on. People want to see something like interesting and different happen, but we just have not seen anything to support it happening. Paul Thomas Anderson is going to win this Oscar. He has been here so many times before. He has created a film that the Global Academy has highly embraced and is excited to award. This film is not facing any backlash or oh my God, I can't even think of words. God, it's not conspiracy. What's the fucking word? I need to go to bed. Controversy. Oh my God, that took way too long to conjure up. No backlash, no controversy for the film. You know, it's gonna be Paul Thomas Anderson. Is that who I want to win? Not necessarily. I talked about it in my personal ballot that I would vote for Chloe Zhao here. But yeah, I think people are starting to get a little carried away, and who knows, if I end up having to eat my words, so be it. You'll see it. You'll see it happen live, and you'll see my post coverage video as well where I talk about it. But there's just nothing supporting, at the very least, nothing supporting Ryan Coogler upsetting here. I think he'll be back. I think he will have his moment for sure, but this is just undeniably Paul Thomas Anderson. You know, every award, DGA, Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, BAFTA, pretty much almost every Critics Award, like it's got to be him. You know, this isn't, like I said, about the comparison to things like Everything Everywhere, Parasite, you know, those type, this just does not feel the same because people were ready to like go against whatever else was there. With like Code is a bad example for director, but just like in terms of the vibe shift in general, people were ready to turn their back on The Power of the Dog because it was a bit of a downer film. People with Parasite were ready to go against 1917 because it wasn't enough of a cinema package for them to want to recognize, and they were just so excited about what Parasite brought in contrast to 1917. Moonlight and La La Land, La La Land became an enemy of that season, so it made sense that it was going to end up turning up empty somewhere. And it really only ended up being Best Picture, really. But again, like One Battle After Another is something that people are excited to vote for, and that has not changed. So my final prediction for Best Director is Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another. And then Best Picture. So again, I think One Battle ends up taking this. I think this is a closer race than Best Director. Like, I do think this is perhaps one of the closest Best Picture races, like potentially of all time. I really do. I think that they're going to have pretty equal like vote spreads. Like, I think they're going to eat up so many number ones each and number twos. And I don't think neither are edgy or polarizing enough that I think they're going to send people to like the 7 to 10 range a lot either. So I think this is just going to have so many of those votes in like the top 5 that it will wind up being pretty close. A crazy upset that I could see happening at like a 0.0001% chance is Sentimental Value coming out. If the split is crazy enough, and like, I don't know, in my conspiracy brain, I'm like, could people intentionally, like, could One Battle voters put Sinners at number 10 because they want to make sure One Battle wins, and like vice versa? Could Sinners voters put One Battle at number 10 to try and like dock it? I hope that doesn't happen. I hope people aren't voting that way and they're voting like with their heart and their taste. But if that were happening, I could see the nice little Sentimental Value picking up all these like 2, 3, 4 votes and then being like, hey, here I am. That'd be wild. I will go streaking around my neighborhood if Sentimental Value pulls off a win here. I am locking that in like right now as a promise, and I will get it recorded. But yeah, at the end of the day, I do think this will be a nail biter because I think like, I don't know. Yeah, honestly, like I think Sinners could win Best Picture with just a screenplay and score package, which I'm currently predicting. I think that could happen. Screenplay, score, picture. I think that like represents everything that like Sinners was for the year, with its screenplay, with its score being like the most prominent parts of that film. If it gets an acting win, that's like even stronger. That really will have me chewing on my nails a little bit if it picks up like either supporting actress or actor. Supporting actress, I'll be like thinking a little bit, okay, supporting actress, screenplay, score, that's a decent package. But then like if Delroy and or Michael B. Jordan wins, then I'm like, oh, I think it's happening. But again, that's not my current predictions and the package that I think it's going to get. And at the end of the day, I do think One Battle After Another is going to be our Best Picture winner. So running through some stats here, I have One Battle winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6, 7. Yeah, I have One Battle winning 7. I have Sinners winning 2, 3. Oh, I didn't talk about that too. I have Sinners in casting. So screenplay, score, casting, picture. That sounds like a good package. That sounds like a very good package. I think even if it doesn't get an acting win, I think now with the casting award there, that could encapsulate all of the acting awards in a way and allow a film to like carry that with like 2 other awards to a Best Picture win. So that's something interesting to keep in mind. So I currently have One Battle getting 7, Sinners getting 3 with screenplay, casting, and score. Frankenstein getting 3 with costume, production, and makeup. Sentimental Value getting 2 with supporting actress and international. Hamnet getting 1 with actress. I'm trying to decide if I think that's a weird package too. 8 nominations and it's only, yeah, I think for Hamnet it makes sense because like Jesse's just been like the thing to vote for that film all year. K-pop Demon Hunters getting 2, F1 getting 1, Fire and Ash getting 1, and then we got documentary in the shorts. So those are my final predictions, y'all. It is looking like a 1 battle sweeper from my projections. Kind of similar-ish to Oppenheimer, but not quite, because Oppenheimer won. How many did Oppenheimer win? Picture, director, editing, score, actor, supporting actor. That's 6. Oh, and cinematography, 7. So 7. So I'm basically, I'm actually like basically predicting 1 battle to get the Oppenheimer package, but swapping score for adapted screenplay. Interesting. I actually feel okay about that. Not gonna lie. I could see that being the case for sure. So it's not unprecedented, you know, it's not doing like a total domination here. So yeah, so that is where I'm at with my final Oscar predictions. What are we at? Like an hour and a half or so? Okay, not bad. Gonna edit this down, probably get it down to 60 minutes, I'd say. So thank you all so much for joining. Please like, subscribe. Feel free to drop your predictions in the comments. Tell me where I'm fucking crazy. Tell me where we are synced up on something. At the end of the day, this is all fun. I hope to do well on Sunday night, but if I am left with a lot of surprises, you know, there's not much that can happen this year that would leave me disappointed. I think a lot of the potential winners this year are very deserving, so it'll be very fun even if I end up with a shitty looking ballot. So thank you all so much. Stay tuned for my reactions to the 98th Annual Academy Awards taking place this Sunday, March 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Ta-ta!